So I hope you understood till the portions which I have taken during the live class, as well as the continuation of live class in the recorded class also. So we finished off a talk, right? We talked about equilibrium of rigid body, right? So I hope you understood the problem section also. So the next topic, as per your textbook, which you have to follow, is principle of moments, right? What do you mean by moments? Torque, right? So you can also call it as principle of torque, right? So what does it says? Principle, obviously there will be a statement. Now what if someone asks you what is the principle of moments? The principle of moments states that at equilibrium or in equilibrium, sum of clockwise moment, right? Sum of clockwise moment or torque, right, is equal to sum of anti-clockwise moment. Okay, anti-clockwise moment, obviously at any point. Or you can say another statement for the principle of moments. It can be stated that sum of net moments of a body at equilibrium is equal to 0. I hope you didn't understand. Just mug up the statement, guys. You have to write the statement as it is for examination. I'll tell you what it is. See, you would have seen the case of seesaw, right? Seesaw, right? One kid will be sitting over here, the other person will be sitting over here, and this might be more, if this weight is larger, so this moves downwards and this moves upwards, right? When you say they are balanced, when this force and this force are equal, then the seesaw, this platform remains stagnant, right? Neither of them moves downward or upwards, right? So I would say at equilibrium. When I say the seesaw is at equilibrium, when I say it is at equilibrium, means the torque caused by this force is equal to the torque caused by this force, right? This torque is moving this section in this weight, right? So this is what, anti-clockwise. So the moment, right, the anti-clockwise moment, if it is equal to the clockwise moment, then we say that object is said to be in equilibrium. Or the another statement, at equilibrium the sum of net moments, right, the sum of the moment due to, or the torque due to this section and torque due to this section is equal to 0. This will be plus, then this will be minus, right? This is anti-clockwise, so it is plus, this is clockwise, so this is negative. Clear? Right. Suppose again we are going to consider the same example of lever system, or you can say a rod on a fulcrum. So this is a rod, right? This section, this one is called fulcrum, right? Let us say a weight W1 is here and another weight W2 is acting over here. Let's say this is X1 and let's say this is X2, that is the distance of each weights, right? So W2 is rotating this one in clockwise direction, right? And W1 is rotating in anti-clockwise direction. This much clear? So clockwise we are going to take it as negative and anti-clockwise we are taking as positive, right? Now movement of W2 is negative, right? Clockwise. So moment of W2 is negative, moment of W1 is positive. This much clear? So as per principle of moment, right, this is the force, that is W1 into perpendicular distance is x1. This W1 x1 is equal to W2 x2 at equilibrium. So principle of moment states that at equilibrium W1 x1 is equal to W2 x2, or you can write it as W x1 minus W2 x2 is equal to 0. Sum of net moments at equilibrium is equal to 0, right? Simple, right? Now we are going to take the scenario again. So I'm just drawing the figures like this. Let's say there is a force here, another force F2 is acting here. Let's say the fulcrum is here, so the fulcrum also gives a reaction, right? So let's say this distance is d1 and this distance is d2, right? So for translational equilibrium, right? The net force should be equal to 0, right? So when an object is said to be at equilibrium, when sum of force is equal to 0 and sum of torque is equal to 0, this is indicating translational equilibrium, this indicates rotational equilibrium. So translational equilibrium means sum of forces should be equal. So I can say F1 plus F2, right? F1 plus F2, right, is equal to R, right? Or I can say R minus F1 minus F2 is equal to 0, right? Similarly, pertaining or depending upon rotational equilibrium, that is that torque is equal to 0. So that is F1 d1 minus F2 d2 is equal to 0, right? So normally, right, this F1 is usually the weight which you want to lift. Remember, see, this is an example. We are going to relate this entire principle of moments with real life. See, if you want to, suppose this is a rod like this, you are having a block, right? So you want to raise this block, means you will keep a fulcrum here, right? And you will apply a force here. You will apply a force here, that is your F2, right? So that the load will move up, but the load will be giving a weight downwards, right? Remember, if you want to bring this mass upwards, right, you want to bring this mass upwards, then you will be applying a force in the downward direction here, right, along with the fulcrum here. Usually it is stone which you keep. The weight of the object will be downwards then, right? So F1 which we have drawn here, F1 is as usually the weight which you want to lift. That is called load. I'm sorry, again, let me keep that in silent, right? So F1 is actually load. That's why this distance which you have marked here, D1, is usually called what? Load arm. What is it called? Load arm. So F1, from the figure you can say F1 is load and D1 is load arm. F2 is where you applied effort, right? That's why F2 is called effort, whereas D2 is called effort arm. So D1 is load arm, D2 is equal to called as effort arm. So can't I write this equation, that is F1 D1 is equal to F2 D2? They can write this one as what? F1 D1 equal to F2 D2, right? So what is F1? It is load and D1 is load arm, is equal to F2 is effort into effort arm, right? Simple, right? So from here, from this equation, can't I write what is load here, right? Or I can write or I can write from this equation, right? From this equation, can't I write F1 by F2 is equal to D2 by D1? That's what is F1 by F2? F1 is load, F2 is effort. So load by effort is equal to effort arm by what? D1 is load arm, right? So usually from this expression, suppose when D2 is greater than D1, when this length is greater than this length, when D2 is greater than D1, it indicates F1 will be greater than F2, right? That means F1 is greater means the load will be higher than the applied effort. So the scenarios like this, that is, in order to bring a heavy load, right, in order to pull or push an heavy load from a lower position to higher position, always keep the load arm longer and effort arm longer and load arm shorter. That is the meaning of it. When clearly understand it, when D2 is greater than D1 means your effort arm is greater than load arm, then you can have higher load can be, right? Load will be greater than effort. So you can push or you can take a heavier load by applying less effort. So if you want to pull an object from a lower position to higher position, keep the fulcrum in such a way that this distance is lesser than this distance. Effort arm is greater than load arm. Clear? So a small section which is present in your textbook, please study it. Clear? The next topic which you have to, or which is present in your textbook and you have to learn, is called center of gravity. Right after that only moment of inertia comes up. See, what does you mean by center of gravity? It is a point where the total gravitational torque on the body is zero. That is, suppose I consider a body like this. So there will be usually the center, right? That point, the gravitational force is there, right? So that gravitational force will be also causing a torque. Every force, right, if it is having a distance from the axis of rotation, it will be existing or explaining a what? Torque, right? Any type of force. So similarly, gravitational force will also cause torque, right? So but at any point on the object where the total gravitational torque on the body is zero, that point is known as center of gravity. That is, at that point there will not be any rotation due to gravitation. That is, this is just like your what you say, Sudarshana Chakra of Krishna, right? So suppose this is your disc and you are keeping your finger like this, right? Right. So if you move the finger away from the disc, right? Suppose you keep the finger here, the disc will be falling down in this direction, right? Right. So it will be toggling out, right? So there is a point, right, where you can balance the disc. That becomes your center of gravity, right? Because there the gravitational force is not causing any change. When you keep the finger here, it is not causing any toppling or any movement, because here the gravity is not causing any rotatory motion. Clear? That point is known as center of gravity. Most of this time, center of gravity and center of mass are coinciding. Most of around 99%, both of them will be same, right? So you don't have to go detailed to it, right? So if someone asks you what is center of gravity, just write the definition. The point where the total gravitational torque on the body is zero, it is similar to the center of mass. Clear? Right? And it's a balancing point, so obviously the net force and the net torque will be equal to zero, right? Because at that point the equilibrium condition is achieved. This much is clear, right? This topic which we are going to deal is moment of inertia. Moment of inertia, very important, guys, right? So I hope you understood the severity of this topic, because the entire chapter is based on this topic, right? So moment of inertia, which is represented by capital I, right, is analogous to mass in the case of linear motion. That is, if you compare linear motion and rotational motion, there are some terms which are analogous to each other, right? In case of linear motion, if you are having S as the displacement, in rotational motion you are having angular displacement. In the case of linear displacement, it is tangential velocity, or you can say it is just velocity. Then in rotational motion it is omega. Acceleration, tangential acceleration, not centripetal acceleration, is equivalent to angular acceleration in the case of rotational motion. Similarly, force in the linear motion is analogous to torque in the case of rotational motion. Similarly, in linear motion, the game which mass plays, the same game it is played by moment of inertia in the case of rotational motion. That is, see, it is actually a definition, sir, section which you have to understand. Suppose there is an axis, let's say xx, means I have just taken axis, and a mass has been tied like this, so that this becomes axis of rotation. That is, this mass is going to rotate in this direction. This much clear? Now about this axis, someone asks you what is the definition of moment of inertia of this mass, then about this axis of rotation xx, then moment of inertia of mass m about xx is equal to mr squared, where r is the distance of the mass from the axis of rotation. By heart this equation, it is xmi of xx, that is moment of inertia about x axis, is equal to mass into square of the distance of the mass from the axis of rotation, right? That is, suppose I apply a force like this. suppose from my perspective I am applying a force like this, then obviously the object will be having an acceleration, that is it has a tendency to have a rotational motion, right? So it will be having an acceleration in this direction. So I can write F is equal to what? F is equal to mass into acceleration, right? And this section, let us multiply R here and R here, right? So what is R into F? That is your torque, right? Then mass, I can write A is your tangential acceleration, this section, right? So tangential acceleration, I can write it as R alpha, right, into R. So I can write torque is equal to mr squared alpha. Can't I write? Now let us compare this equation, this is regarding rotational motion, right? Similarly, let us compare it with the linear motion equation, which is force, right? Analogous to torque is force into mass into acceleration. Now A is your linear acceleration. Similarly, you are having analogous with the same previous equation. Just compare these two equations, guys. So alpha is rotational acceleration or angular acceleration. Analogous to it, you are having linear acceleration. That means analogous to mass, you are having a term called mr squared in the case of your rotational motion. This mr squared is our what? Moment of inertia I. So tau can be equal to I alpha. So this is also an equation, please write it down, right? So I can say moment of inertia is a rotational analogy or analog of mass. Clear? This much is clear, right? So suppose someone asks you the expression of kinetic energy of a rotating body, right? That is, suppose a body is rotating about a fixed axis and each particle is going to have a circular motion, right? So suppose if you want, you can write it as a heading, expression for or of kinetic energy of a rotating body. Write the heading like this, right? Suppose the body is rotating about a fixed axis and each particle will be having a circular motion. So each particle will be having kinetic energy. I can write it as half mv square, right? And mv, this is what? Our tangential velocity, right? So I have to write it in the form of angular velocity. So half m r omega whole squared, or I can say half m r squared omega squared. Right, so this is for one particle, right? So what will be total kinetic energy of the body? It will be sum of kinetic energy of each particle, right? Or I will write it as sum of kinetic energy of each particle, right? So that is equal to, from where? From first particle to the nth particle. So half, right? Sigma I is equal to 1 to n, right? m I r I squared omega squared, right? You can write for total kinetic energy, you can write this expression. Simple, right? Now omega is usually very small, right? So that is not going to change much. That is actually omega is constant also. Remember, when you take an object, it is undergoing a rotational motion. All the particles on the surface will be having same angular velocity because they will be having same angular displacement, right? So omega is constant, so I can bring that also outside. So total kinetic energy, I can write it as half omega squared sigma I is equal to 1 to n mi r I squared, right? This mi r I squared, right? Remember, I can now name it as moment of inertia, right? mr squared, that is for one particle. So multiple particles is mi r I squared sum, right? So kinetic energy can be also written as half omega squared I, right? Or I can write kinetic energy is equal to half, okay, I can write it as I omega squared, right? Now let's compare the general equation of your kinetic energy in a linear motion. It is half mv squared, right? So omega squared analogous is v squared in the case of linear section. So I is analogous to mass, right? So we have, by two methods I have proved that moment of inertia in rotational motion is analogous to mass in the case of linear motion. Clear? Simple. Now we are going to find, so there are standard some of the moment of inertia of the objects which you have to learn, right? That is moment of inertia of ring. Moment of inertia of ring. This and all you have to by heart, guys, right? So we are going to derive the moment of inertia of a ring, right? Suppose what is the kinetic energy of any particle? It is half. Let's say the mass of the ring is capital M and the radius of the ring is capital R. So you will write half mv squared, right? So half m, right, r squared omega squared, right? Or I can write half m r squared omega squared. I have just removed the section. So let us compare with the standard kinetic energy of any rotatory object is half I omega squared. So this becomes the I. So someone asks you the expression of moment of inertia about a ring, which suppose this is the ring, so that the axis of rotation is like this. That is, the axis is passing through the center. The ring is rotating like this. Then its moment of inertia of the ring is equal to mr squared, by hearted as it is. Moment of inertia of a ring with the plane passing through its center is IR is equal to mr squared. Clear? This and all you have to mug up. There is a table in your textbook by hearted. Right? Similarly, someone asks you moment of inertia of a rod, right, with two masses at its end, right? That is, this is the rod like this, right? Let's say there are two masses here. Let's say both of them are equal masses, right? Someone asks you, let's say this mass is m by 2 and this mass is m by 2, right? And this rod is supposed to be rotating here. So let's say this length is L by 2 and this length is L by 2, right? So, right, we'll take it like this. I hope this much is clear. So what is moment of inertia? That is sum of first particle to second particle. There are only two particles, right? So first particle to second particle, mi ri squared, right? Or I can say m1 r1 squared plus m2 r2 squared, right? Moment of inertia of this particle to this particle. Okay, I will do a thing. Okay, after that I will show a small derivation before. Okay, I think this will be difficult to suddenly jump to the problem. Just write it down. I will do a problem, then will be easy when you understand it. So what is m1? M1 is m by 2, right? R1 is what? Distance, this one, L by 2 whole square, plus m2 is m by 2 and R2 is this distance, that is L by 2 whole square, right? So you will get ml squared by 4. This is the expression of moment of inertia of a rod with an axis passing through its center. Mug up this equation. Now guys, sometimes these are the some of the constant or type of rigid body equations which you have to by heart. Sometimes it will not be given, means as it is the problem will not be there. So how would you deal with it? So generally understand this one. Suppose there is an axis of rotation like this and there is a mass here m1. Let's say there is another mass m2 and there is another mass m3 here. This is m3, m1 here, and this is m2. And let's say this rod or this axis, about this axis, the three masses are rotating at a distance r1, r2 and r3. Right? So the total moment of inertia is m1 into r1 squared, right, plus m2 into r2 squared, plus m3 into r3 squared. Multiple masses, multiply add it, right? Suppose you are asked a problem like this. Suppose this is a square section, right? Suppose the entire length from here to here is a and from here to here is a, and there's an axis of rotation like this and the object is going to rotate like this, okay, right? And then you are asked there is equal masses of m at the edges of the square and you are asked what is the moment of inertia of the system. So how would you say? Moment of inertia is due to this guy about this axis of rotation. This length will be a by 2. So I will write this mass into this length square, mr squared, right? So a by 2 square plus m, this guy, into this distance is also a by 2, so a by 2 whole square plus this mass into this a by 2 whole square, like this mass into this a by 2 whole square, right? And like that there are 4 guys of similar value, so I can straight away write it as 4 into into a by 2 whole square, or I can write it as m a square. Simple as it is, right? Similarly, let's take another scenario. There is a, let's say, a triangular lamina, equilateral triangle. Let's say it is an equilateral triangle and there is a mass here. Let's say the axis is straight away passing through the mass, right? This is 60 degree, right? Let's say the length of the equilateral triangle is L, so this angle is 60 degree, this much you know, right? And you are asked what is the moment of inertia of this lamina. So how would you do it? And let's say there is a equal masses m here, right? So first of all, you require that total moment of inertia is due to the inertia due to this guy plus this guy plus this guy, this much no, right? What will the moment of inertia due to this guy? It will be 0 because there is no distance between the axis of rotation and the mass. So this mass will be causing 0 moment of inertia. What will be the moment of inertia due to this mass? It is m into r squared. What is r? The distance of this mass from the axis of rotation. What will be this distance? See, this angle is 60 means this angle is 60. So this is L, then this will be L cos 60, and L cos 60 is L by 2. Right, so it is m into r squared, that is m into L by 2 whole square, plus, now this mass is at a distance L from the axis of rotation. This is the axis of rotation, right? So this distance is L, so it will be m L square. So when you add, you will get 5 by 4 m L square. This much clear, right? So I'm just telling you, if some problems comes up, you can even calculate it, right? Suppose you are asked, there is a rod, right, which is having mass m and length L, right? This is something you can be asked as a problem. So we did a problem, we actually, moment of inertia of a ring is something you have to by heart, right? So similarly, we are going for another term which you have to by heart. Let's say this is a rod of mass m and length. You are asked what is the moment of inertia about an axis which is perpendicular bisector of the rod, right? Nothing has been mentioned about the mass, only said that the entire rod is having mass m, right? And that means there is an axis of rotation like this. This is the perpendicular bisector of the rod, right? So, and it is rotating like this, right? So the derivation can be asked directly, okay? You are asked what is the moment of inertia about this axis, right? So we are going to do is, we are going to consider a small element dx, right? Let's say it is at a distance x from here, right? From this axis, it is at a distance x, right? Now mass per unit length of the rod, let's say it is m by L. That is 1 unit, that is 1 unit of length is having mass m by L. Then dx unit will be having m by L into dx mass, right? I have taken it earlier, just go through it, right? So see, 1 unit of length is having this much mass, means dx unit will be having this much mass, right? So let's say the moment of inertia of this much section is very small. Let's take it as di, right, is equal to mass is how much? Dm, mass of this small section, let's say it is very small, dm into distance squared, that is x squared, right? Now dm is the mass of this much section, and we are told this much section is length dx, right? So its mass I have already written as m by L into dx. So dl is equal to dx into m by L, or I can write it as what? M by L into dx then into x squared, right? So you found the moment of inertia of a small section. So for finding the moment of inertia of the entire section, you have to integrate di from lower limit to upper limit, right? See, if this is the origin, if I am taking this as the origin, then this much distance will be L by 2 and this much distance will be L by 2. So this will be negative and this will be positive, then this will be minus L by 2 to L by 2, right? So I will take or integrate from minus L by 2 to L by 2, right? So integrating this guy, that is integration minus L by 2 to L by 2 m by L x squared dx. I just brought the terms right here. This much clear? Now m by l is constant. See guys, if you want, you can write it as small l, because I think in the entire book I have written it as small l now. So write it as small l. So m by l is constant. I will take outside. Right, x squared integration is x cubed by 3. Upper limit, lower limit. Now put the values of upper limit and lower limit. M by l, right? L cube by 8, right? 8 into 3, or you can put the 3 outside, so L cube, right? 3 is constant, right? So it is L by 2. If you put it is L by cube by 8. Minus of minus becomes what? Plus is L cube by 8, right? So you will have 2L cube by 24, or you can write it as M L cube by 3L, or I can write as denominator as 12L. Now 1L cancels, so you will get ml squared by 12. This is the expression for moment of inertia about an axis passing perpendicular or bisector. Bisector means it is dividing the rod into two equal halves, right? Perpendicular bisector is passing through the board. Then the moment of inertia about that axis is ml squared by 12. Very important, guys, right? And similarly, there is a lot of derivations. I will do a maximum of derivations I will try to include here, right? Let's say after that only I will go for radius of gyration. Let's say uniform circular plate. Okay, let us consider this is the C part. We first did for ring, then we did for a rod, right, with a perpendicular bisector, which we just found. This is mr square. Moment of inertia is mr square. For rod it is ml squared by 12. Similarly, the C condition, right, in between which we did is a problem. Someone is giving you a straight away question to find moment of inertia. You can find that method which I have taught you guys, right? Now the next C part which we are going to find is, suppose you are having a disc. A disc means it's a solid surface, okay, and you are asked what is the moment of inertia about its axis, right? Suppose the disc is having mass m and it is having radius r. So just like the previous case, we are going to take a small segment from this disc. Let's say this much small section I'm taking. Okay, so this much clear. Let's say the thickness of this much section is dx, and this dx is having a mass, let's say dm, small mass, right? And let's say this section is at a distance x from the axis of rotation or the center, obviously. Now let us say sigma, that is mass per unit area of the plate, is mass per unit. How would you write it as? M by pi r squared, right? Clear? Now then this mass is for 1 unit, right? So dm, that is the mass of this much section, will be what? Equal to what? M by pi r squared. That is for 1 unit into this much unit is how much? Area of this thin plate, right? I hope you remember. I have taken it in the live class also. I have taken it clearly. See, sigma indicates the mass of small or of an area of the disc, right? Mass per unit area of 1 unit, let's say 1 meter square. Now I'm going to take this much section, right? This much section dx will be having dA area, let's say, right? So that's mass, that is that unit's mass. dA area will be having a mass of this much, right? dm, mass of this much section, is equal to mass per unit area into the area of this section. Now what is area of that section? Area is circumference. Remember, what will be the circumference of this section? It will be 2 pi r. In place of r, I have to write it as x, right? So here I am going to write m pi r squared into area is 2 pi x, right? Length into breadth is how much? Dx, right? Clear? Now going for smaller moment of inertia of that much area, that is dm, mass into distance squared, is x squared, right? So in place of dm, I'm going to substitute this value, that is m by pi r squared into 2 pi x into dx into x squared, right? Now I can remove a lot of guys, right? So pi cancels off, right? So and there comes an x cube. So I can write m by m, and there is a 2 now, 2m r squared x cube dx. This is a small moment of inertia of that much area of plate which have cut down from the disk, right? Now to find the entire moment of inertia, I have to integrate this di, right? From where to where? From this center section to this end, that is the radius, right? So I will integrate from 0 to r di, right? So what is di? Di I have written here. I will substitute, that is 2m by r squared x cube dx, right? Now it is fully calculation. 2m by r square, I'm taking common outside, so integral 0 to r x cube dx, right? What is integral x cube? It is x raised to 4. So 2m by r square x raised to 4 by 4. So let's bring that 4 outside, right? X raised to 4, then upper limit, lower limit. Upper limit you put, it becomes r raised to 4, right? And lower limit is 0, so need not write, so r raised to 4. So cut it down, this guy becomes square, this guy goes off, and this 2, this becomes 2. You will get a simple equation for moment of inertia, which is mr squared by 2. This is the moment of inertia, that is if there is a disk like this and you are passing the axis through the center, then the moment of inertia of the disk about this axis is mr squared by 2. If you want, it is very easy. In the case of ring means this entire thing is hollow, right? Here the moment of inertia about the axis of rotation like this is what? Mr squared. Whereas in the case of disk, it becomes half of it, which is mr squared by 2, right? Now similarly, let us talk about moment of inertia of cylinder about its axis. That is, this is a cylinder. Let's say about hollow cylinder, then we'll go for solid. Hollow cylinder, right, like this, right? That is, there is a axis like this. Let's say there is a radius r of the hollow sphere is radius r, right? So you are asked what is the moment of inertia of the cylinder if it is rotating about this axis, right? Now let's say the mass of the cylinder is m and the radius r, right? And every element of the cylinder is at the distance r from the axis, right? We drew the thickness to, I want to make sure that you understand what the hollow cylinder is, right? This much thickness will not be there, right? So all the points on the distance or the cylinder will be at a distance r from the center or the axis, right? So again we are going to consider an element, right, which is having mass dm, right? So di, that moment of inertia of that element will be dm into r squared, right? Distance of that element, right? Then I will be integrating it from where to where? I'm integrating dm here, right? If I want to integrate, which is the variable here, r is constant for every element on the hollow sphere, is a distance, constant distance of r from the center of axis of rotation, right? So r is not a variable, that's a constant. So I'm going to integrate what? Dm. So mass is going to change from 0 to maximum value of what? Maximum value of m, right? So you will get moment of inertia is equal to mr squared. Integrating m, you will get m. dm, sorry, integrating dm, you will get m. Simple. So simple, right? So what is the moment of inertia of a cylinder about its axis of rotation like this, passing through its center? It is mr squared. Right. Now since we have discussed about hollow sphere, let us talk about what? A solid, not hollow sphere, we have talked about a hollow cylinder, right? Similarly, let us talk about a solid cylinder. Solid cylinder means it is not hollow, everything is having a thickness, right? So solid cylinder about its axis, let's say the mass of the cylinder again is m and its radius is r. So length of the cylinder is, let's take it as l, small l, okay? This much is given, right? I didn't mark the points now, it's okay, right? So when you are considering a cylinder which is solid in solid in structure, then obviously you have to consider mass per unit volume will be what? Mass by pi r squared L, right? So just like the previous section, I'm drawing the cylinder like this. It will be difficult. Let's draw it larger. This is the cylinder I expected to draw. Right, out of this cylinder I'm going to consider a small section, so you can extend it. Right, let's say this is the axis of rotation, and this thin strip of cylinder, which this is just like a hollow cylinder, right? This is a thick cylinder. This much section was thick. From there I am drilling out a small strip of cylinder outside, right? Let's say that strip of cylinder is at a distance x from the axis of rotation, right? Right, and this small element is dx, and it is at distance x from axis of element or the axis of rotation. Now mass of the element I am going to consider is very small, that is dm. So just like the previous cases, mass of single unit of volume is this much. So what will be the mass of the small element? Again remaining, understand, 1 meter cube or 1 unit of volume is having this much what? Mass, right? So small unit, or that is called dx, will be having a mass dm, right? I can write that dm is equal to mass of 1 unit into, what is the unit of this much section, small section, that is volume of that small unit, right? I hope you understood. Again, see, 1 unit of small volume, right? 1 unit of volume is having this much mass, right? Then dv or dm, which is the mass of this much volume, that is dv, right? I will be having a mass of m by pi r squared L into dv. Now what can I write about dv? That is the volume of the small unit. How can we get the volume? It is meter cube. Yes, that is the unit of volume. That is 2 pi x, that is the length of the curved surface, right, into its thickness, which is dx, into, now we get the top section's area, right, that is 2 pi x into dx, that is meter into meter square. So top section is completed. Now for to get a cylinder, you have to consider the entire length also, which is L, right? So 2 pi x into dx into L, 2 pi x meter, dx meter, L meter. Now you got meter cube, right? 2 pi x into dx is area, right? Area into, much clear, right? Now we are going to include that this dm mass is equal to, now the calculation if you goes off, it is 2m into x into dx by r squared. Pi etc cancels out, you will get an expression. Now that is dm is the mass of the small element you have taken, right? Now what is the moment of inertia of the small unit? Will be dm into its distance from the center of rotation is x squared, right? So I will write it like this. So in place of dm, I can write 2mx dx by r squared into x squared, right? Right? So what is the total moment of inertia? It will be integrating the small unit of section or small integrated function, right? So I'm going to integrate from where to from center to the outer radius, right? 2mx divided by r squared into x squared into dx, right? Out of this 2m by r squared, right, this term is constant, I can bring it outside. So 2m by r squared, then x into x is x cube, right? That if it is integrated, I will get x raised to 4 by 4, upper limit, lower limit, right? So in place of x raised to 4, when you put r raised to 4, then r squared can cancel 2 guys, right? So you will get m r squared by 2, right? Very simple. This is the moment of inertia of a solid cylinder, right? What was the moment of inertia of a hollow cylinder? It was mr squared. Very simple, guys, to remember. In the case of ring, if the axis of rotation is like this, the moment of inertia is mr squared. In the case of disk, if the axis of rotation is like this, so it is mr squared by 2. In the case of hollow sphere, It's not hollow sphere, hollow cylinder, the moment of inertia is mr squared. In the case of solid sphere, it becomes mr squared by 2. And the other thing which you have to by heart is in the case of rod, which is mr squared by 12, right? Similarly, since we have completed the case of cylinder, let's talk about sphere also, right? In the case of sphere also, we are having two sections, which is hollow and the other is solid, right? Now one news is you need not learn the derivation of finding the moment of inertia of sphere or the solid sphere just by heart the equation. So if this is a hollow sphere, moment of inertia about the axis passing through the diameter is 2 by 3 mr squared, where r is the radius of the hollow sphere and m is the mass of hollow sphere. The same case, if it becomes a solid sphere, the moment of inertia is 2 by 5 mr squared. Okay, just mark up the equation, guys. Happy news. What we are going to take is the next heading, that is theorems, right? Two theorems I have going to take. Again, I am repeating, sorry guys, this theorem is removed from your syllabus, but in NEET point of view, they might remove or might not, because lot of questions can be asked from NEET point of view or any entrance examination point of view from this topic. That is theorem of perpendicular axis, right, and the theorem of parallel axis. So from CBSE point of view, it is out of syllabus topics. Clear? So first we are going to deal with theorem of perpendicular axis. That is, the statement says that the moment of inertia of a planar body or a lamina about an axis perpendicular to its plane is equal to the sum of its moment of inertia about two perpendicular axes concurrent with perpendicular axis and lying in the plane of body. That is, I am writing the entire theorem, guys. The moment of inertia, which I am writing it as I, of a plane body or lamina about an axis perpendicular to its plane is equal to sum of its moment of inertia, or I will just write it as I, about two perpendicular axes concurrent with perpendicular axis and lying on or in the same plane or the plane of body, lying in the plane of body. I hope you didn't understand anything. See, I will explain it in a pictorial way. It is said that, suppose this is your lamina or body, right? Let us take three axes, guys. Let's say this is y-axis, this is z-axis, and let's say this is x-axis, right? Let us consider a point here, right, as P, right? It is having two coordinates. Let's take it as x and y, right? So its position is like this, right? It is lying, the coordinates are from this axis x and this axis y, right? Clear? Now an axis now is rotating axis is about z, right? It is passing through O, right? And two mutually perpendicular axes are x and y, and they are lying on the plane, right, of the body, and it is concurrent with z. What concurrent means, both this x and y are meeting at the same point z. So I can say z is the axis where I want to find the moment of inertia, right? So remember, z axis, I am going to find the moment of inertia. So it is said that moment of inertia about z axis is equal to the sum of moment of inertia about two perpendicular axes concurrent with the perpendicular one. That is, I is that is moment of inertia against z axis is equal to sum of moment of inertia about x axis plus moment of inertia in y axis. This is the statement of theorem of perpendicular axis. That is, let us take another example. We are taking the same. Let's say this is Z, this is Y, and this is x-axis, right? Suppose you are asked the moment of inertia about an axis, just let's say this diameter. So Iz is equal to Ix plus Iy, right? Now, see, let's say this is a ring, then it will be better. Let us say this is a ring, right? If I consider the ring, Iy or Iz, all of them is about the diameter itself. See, when I extend this one, this is a diameter. When I extend this axis, that is also diameter, right? So Ix is also an axis which is about diameter, and Iy is also a moment of inertia about diameter. So Ix is equal to Iy. I hope you understand the thing here. This is a ring, right? This becomes diameter, this becomes diameter, this is not diameter, this is something, or this axis which I have now drawn is passing perpendicular to the plane. I hope you understood the figure. I'm repeating again, guys. You are taking a ring like this, right? This line is, that is, if you consider paper, you are drawn on the paper like this, and on the paper itself you can draw from here to here also, right? Now the line which I'm going to indicate as Z is actually, if this is the plane, you are drilling a pen inside through the paper. That is Z axis. So this is X or this is Y, and Z is passing through the center of paper. Clear? Right? So I can say X as well as Y is actually diameter, right? Or X as well as Y is an axis passing through the diameter or existing as diameter, but Z is actually a line or axis which is passing through the center from top to bottom, right? Clear? So as per the formula, Iz is equal to Ix plus Iy. I can again write it as Ix itself, right? So Ix plus Ix is 2Ix, or Is is equal to Iz by 2, right? Now what is the scenario? Why it is very important? Remember, we have learned the moment of inertia of a ring if the axis is passing through like this. That is, when this is a paper and a hole is drilled like this, right? So we have found it. How much? It is what? mr squared, right? So if someone asks you what is the moment of inertia of rotation if the axis is not lying like this but about the diameter, that is, this just like this is your ring and it is flipping like this, not rotating like this. This one, when you understand, I am redrawing because it is very difficult to understand by drawing, right? Remember, if this is the ring and you are having a pen through the center of the ring, so the ring rotates like this, right? So this becomes the axis of rotation. So that time the moment of inertia's equation is mr squared. Now what we are going to do is, you are having a pen, right? Let's say we will draw a pen. I am having a pen like this and I have tied the pen like this here. So when I flip the pen, the disc or the ring is going to rotate like this. It is going to flip like this. Clear? Right, this is about diameter. This is through the center perpendicular to the plane, right? So you have the equation for moment of inertia of a ring when the axis is passing perpendicular to the plane, which is mr squared. So someone asks you if the axis of rotation is about the diameter, which is Ix, right? It's Ix or Iy, that is Iz by 2, which is Iz, mr squared. So mr squared by 2 divided by 2 is mr squared by 4, right? Very important. Moment of inertia of a ring when the axis of rotation is about its diameter is mr squared by 4. Clear? Right? Now the next theorem which you have to know is theorem of parallel axis. Right? Now theorem of parallel axis statement is so: the moment of inertia of a body about any axis is equal to sum of the moment of inertia of the body about a parallel axis passing through its center of mass and the product of its mass and the square of the distance between the two parallel axes. I hope you didn't understand anything. So I'm not going to write the entire sentence, guys. Understand the scenario. This is a object, right? Let's again, I'm going to consider an axis Z here. This is y-axis and this is x-axis, and this is one axis of rotation, this is another axis of rotation, and this is another axis of rotation. This much clear? Now suppose I know the moment of inertia of this axis of rotation, that is moment of inertia of this object about this axis of rotation. Someone asks you the moment of inertia about this axis of rotation. That is, you are asked what is Iz dash, moment of inertia of this object about this axis of rotation. But you know Iz only. So the formula is saying that the moment of inertia of a body about any axis is equal to sum of the moment of inertia of the body about the parallel axis. What is the parallel axis to this one? This one. What is parallel axis to Z dash? It is Z. Right, sum of the moment of inertia of the body about a parallel axis, which is Iz, passing through its center of mass. Passing through the center of mass. This is its center of mass, right? And the product of mass and square of the distance between the two parallel axes. These are the two parallel axes, right? Let's say the distance between them is a, then I can write it is ma square. That is, if you want to find the moment of inertia of Iz dash, it is the moment of inertia about this axis of rotation, then Iz dash is equal to known moment of inertia plus m into a squared, where a is the distance between these two parallel axes. I can explain it with a very good example, guys. Suppose you are having a ring. Ouch. You have a ring, right? And you know that okay, someone asks you, sorry, I was going to go for disc. Let's take ring itself. This is ring, right? Someone asks you if this is the axis, right? And I want to find the moment of inertia when the ring is rotating about this axis. That is, when the ring is going to rotate like this, right? So you're asked what will be the moment of inertia. How would you do? You know this is the diameter, right? And the ring, when it is rotating about its diameter, that is, it is going to flip like this, then I can write what is the moment of inertia I about the diameter, it is mr squared by 2, where r is the radius of the ring, right? So as per the formula, I dash is equal to I plus m a squared. What is the distance between these two axes? Will be the radius, right? So it is mr squared. So what is I? Mr squared by 2 plus mr squared, that is, it is 3 by 2 mr squared. This much. So this is actually, the question can be moment of inertia about tangent of ring. This is tangent, right? Tangent of a ring. That is 3 by 2 mr squared. Clear? Right? Similarly, someone asks you what is the moment of inertia of the sphere about the tangent of the sphere, right? And you know about this is the sphere, right? Let's say it is a solid sphere, right? So solid spheres equation you have to know. That is for sure you have to know for solid sphere about its diameter. Moment of inertia is what? I is equal to 2 by 5 mr squared. Right? Now you are asked what is the moment of inertia about an axis which is acting as a tangent, right? So this is your unknown moment of inertia, right? So I is a dash or I dash is equal to I plus m r square. Why r square? The distance between these two axes is r, right? So I can write 2 by 5 mr squared plus mr squared. So you'll get 7 by 5 mr squared. Clear? Not that tough, right? So this and all are very easy if you understand the theorem. Again, I am repeating that is removed from your syllabus, but in entrance point of view, it is better if you can learn.